ABC4 has teamed up with Paris RV for the Your Voice, Your Vote tour.
Forest River's production scandal just got exposed, and owners are furious. What was dismissed as isolated issues is now pointing to something much bigger. Dealers are backing out. Resale values are crashing, and insiders are leaking details the company hoped would stay buried. For years, families trusted this brand, and now they're realizing there's a pattern nobody talked about. Quiet memos, missing data, and a trail of red flags too big to ignore. And if you've ever owned one of these rigs, you'll want to hear what happens next. The leak that started it all. On RV forums and Facebook groups, weld seams cracked like old plaster, slide-outs warped after a single season, and water lines leaked through new cabinetry. Within weeks, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration posted a preliminary alert mentioning frame fatigue and improper weld alignment on select Forest River models. The units affected were supposed to be road-ready, yet owners were discovering rust, delamination, and floor rot long before the warranty expired. Those posts, once brushed off as maintenance issues, quickly built a pattern that no one at the company could explain away. By late autumn, resale values plunged. A 2022 Forester, once priced at $112,000, sold privately for under $91,000. Dealers warned each other as buyers backed out over moisture damage in rigs barely a year old. Owners who relied on them for travel and comfort felt the loss immediately. Their rolling homes were sinking in value faster than miles could accumulate. The scandal wasn't public yet, but the math revealed fear hidden behind polished brochures. The first leaks online were just the start. As more owners filed complaints and repair shops uploaded photos, investigators began piecing together something far worse. What appeared to be random defects started aligning across models built in the same time frame. The chatter turned into evidence, and the evidence into outrage. But what owners uncovered next went far beyond loose screws. What began as rumor now pointed straight to a production pattern no one had disclosed. The VN pattern nobody told you about. Digging through recall filings, one detail stood out. Vehicle identification numbers ending in the same sequence kept reappearing in complaints. A retired technician from Indiana noticed it first. Dozens of affected units, from Rockwood travel trailers to Sunseeker motorhomes, carried frame codes linked to a single subcontractor. A leaked parts bulletin later confirmed the connection. Between 2019 and 2023, Forest River sourced critical chassis components from a supplier whose weld jigs failed to meet certification standards. The internal audit, never meant for the public, labeled the defect low visibility, monitor only. That monitor-only call turned into a financial disaster. At spring auctions, rigs from those VN ranges fetched barely half their book value. Dealers logged two-stage depreciation, 20% the first year, another 15% when VN alerts surfaced. Credit union loans flipped upside down as owners owed more than units were worth. Trade-ins stalled when do not retail memos hit lender networks. What looked like coincidence proved systemic. A supply chain flaw baked into thousands of builds. Once those VNs went public, mechanics found matching fracture lines and missing weld plates across multiple plants. The failure wasn't on the road. It was born inside the factory walls. To understand how those flaws slipped through, you have to see what was happening behind those assembly doors. If you've dealt with these issues or seen the warning signs yourself, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Real owner stories revealed more truth than any press release. The defects hidden in plain sight. Inside Forest River's own service bulletins, the same three words kept showing up. Replace bracket assembly. Those quiet directives, sent to dealers under technical service updates, revealed a recurring weakness in structural mounts, wiring harness routes, and LP tank supports. Technicians told owners the fixes were routine, yet teardown photos showed scorched insulation, bent steel tabs, and fasteners missing entirely. One bulletin even reused the same diagram from an earlier recall, changing only the heading and date. It was the copy and paste repair cycle that allowed defective parts to be patched, not redesigned. Independent shops documented voltage drops, scorched connectors, and melted grounding straps. Evidence of shortcuts disguised as progress. One Iowa mechanic summed it up. Built for speed, not endurance, each skipped minute in production now costs hundreds in parts and labor. Average repair invoices exceed $5,800, with warranty departments covering only a fraction. Identical faults surfaced year after year, proving these weren't isolated errors, but design flaws repeated on autopilot. It wasn't wear or aging, it was neglect engineered into routine. Which raises the question, how did these rigs ever clear inspection? The answer came when frustrated owners and insiders finally compared notes in public. When the silence broke? By early spring, the frustration had reached a breaking point. RV owners who once swapped campground tips were now organizing recall spreadsheets and tracking service center backlogs. What had begun as small talk online turned into a coordinated information drive, complete with VN checklists and photo archives of failed frames. Local news outlets picked up the story after a handful of retired engineers confirmed the defects matched factory shortcuts they had warned about years earlier. Forest River's public relations team responded with a familiar line: "Safety is our highest priority," and these incidents represent a small portion of production. Independent mechanics found corrosion on new parts, missing adhesives, and uneven torque on slide-outs. Photos online showed gaps wider than the company's excuses. Financing owners were furious. Resale listings stalled as buyers demanded inspections, and dealers quietly pulled ads, praying the headlines would fade before the next sales cycle. The silence that protected the brand for years finally cracked. What had been whispers in service bays became proof in public view, and what came next reshaped how owners saw the entire company. That's when insiders finally talked, and the real story came out: quotas over quality. The deeper investigators dug, the clearer the pattern became. Speed had replaced craftsmanship. Between 2021 and 2024, internal scheduling documents showed inspection windows shrinking from 90 minutes to under 45. A leaked directive from a plant manager set a daily target of 22 completed units per line, a figure that left no time for torque checks or moisture testing. Assembly workers, paid bonuses for hitting quotas, admitted off the record that they often signed inspection forms before the rigs even rolled off the line. The push for volume came straight from corporate targets tied to quarterly earnings, not safety margins. The rush for speed is now a costly legacy. Each skipped inspection became a future repair measured in thousands, with a single missed weld turning into roof leaks that ruined interiors and shorted wiring. One technician estimated every hour saved on the line created 3 hours of later warranty work. Service bays across the Midwest now overflow with rigs waiting months for corrections that should have been caught on day one. What Forest River once hailed as industry-leading efficiency now reads as a warning about haste disguised as progress. Production targets were met, but reliability was left behind, and sourcing soon followed the same path. The next leak showed exactly how a single cost-cut decision could ignite a national recall. The $14 bracket that sparked a recall. Every scandal has a symbol, and this one came down to a simple piece of steel. In 2023, the supplier responsible for rear frame support brackets proposed a cheaper alloy blend that saved about $14 per unit. Management approved the change without retesting for vibration endurance. Within months, those brackets began fracturing under load, letting spare tire carriers swing loose at highway speeds. One owner in Kansas reported a 200-pound assembly breaking free and damaging a car behind him. When investigators traced the part numbers, they found the cost-cut batch had gone into more than 4,000 vehicles across multiple brands under the Forest River umbrella. Leaked supplier invoices exposed the swap from Type A steel to Type B composite, a downgrade made to save a few dollars per build. The shortcut backfired instantly. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration labeled the defect a critical structural risk, forcing a sweeping recall that cost nearly $9 million before legal penalties even began. Dealerships halted sales, while insurers marked VINs as safety pending. Resale values collapsed overnight, and even repaired rigs carried the stain of the cheap bracket run. Forest River's small accounting win turned into a financial disaster measured in lawsuits, stranded inventory, and burned trust. Years of brand equity vanished to save less than the cost of 2 tanks of fuel. Yet the real danger wasn't structural fatigue. It was electrical failure waiting to ignite, a new flaw emerging just as the company scrambled to contain the last one: the electrical blind spot. Fire reports started trickling in during early 2024, most involving the same models already under scrutiny for bracket failures. At first, the company blamed aftermarket modifications, but the insurance photos told a different story. Melted insulation and charred floor panels pointed to wiring harnesses routed too close to heat sources. In several cases, the main grounding strap was undersized, allowing voltage spikes that cooked surrounding cables. The official defect report filed with federal regulators confirmed insufficient clearance and inadequate ventilation inside converter bays. That's engineer language for corners cut. Insurance premiums jumped 12% across flagged VNs as fire risks climbed, and some carriers refused full coverage without proof of rewiring. Technicians saw the cause firsthand: tight bends, weak clips, zero airflow, but production never paused. Forest River's fix was a spacer, not a solution. Engineers told to document and proceed watched the fires multiply. What followed wasn't oversight, it was a strategy to hide danger behind paperwork. Even after flames, the line kept running quietly. What happened next wasn't a defect at all. It was the disappearance of the proof that any of this had ever been documented. Paperwork that doesn't exist. When regulators requested full inspection records for the suspect models, Forest River's compliance servers came up suspiciously clean. Whole weeks of quality control sign-offs were missing, replaced by blank entries and recycled timestamps. Former auditors described the deletions as surgical, as if someone had scrubbed the trail on purpose. The company called it a data migration error, but metadata from the recovered files told another story: user logins editing logs long after employees had left the company. That digital erasure meant investigators couldn't verify who cleared which unit for shipment, effectively shielding decision makers from accountability. Falsified records can cost up to $25,000 per unit, and missing files multiplied that risk overnight. Management framed it as optics, not compliance, hiring lawyers instead of reopening inspections. Mechanics got silence while new scripts swapped defect verification for customer satisfaction. Each unsigned form now hides an unseen expense and uncertainty for every rig on the road. Accountability shifted from factory floors to legal boards. Proof that paperwork, not metal, became the company's first line of defense. Owners versus the company. The first lawsuits landed like thunderclaps. In Indiana, Texas, and Florida, groups of owners joined forces, filing class actions that accused Forest River of willful concealment. The filings read like confessionals from the road: families stranded by mechanical failures, retirees burned by warranty denials, and full-timers left with rigs that could no longer pass safety inspections. Lawyers pointed to internal memos, acknowledging structural faults months before recalls were issued. One excerpt cited an executive email warning that premature disclosure could jeopardize year-end revenue. That single sentence turned a production problem into a corporate scandal. By spring, combined claims topped $210 million, covering defects, lost use, and collapsing resale value. Plaintiffs said silence inflated prices while selling unsafe rigs. Analysts called it the largest legal push in RV history. Inside Forest River, attorneys built crisis teams as statements promised cooperation without repair. Lawsuits gave owners a voice, but dealer lots told the truth. Confidence vanished, prices plunged, and the financial fallout spread faster than any court ruling could. What happened next wasn't about courtrooms. It was about cold, hard numbers that every owner could see in black and white. The value crash. By early summer, the used RV market was unrecognizable. Forest River units, once considered dependable and easy to resell, now sat unsold for months. Auction sheets painted a brutal picture. A 2022 Cherokee that had fetched $39,995 barely reached $28,000 after 60 days on the block. Dealers began lowering reserves just to clear space. The same depreciation that once took 2 years was now hitting in a single season. The term recall rig became slang among wholesalers for inventory that could tank a balance sheet. Equity vanished almost overnight as resale values plunged by $11,400 per unit. Lenders froze refinancing, insurers denied full payouts, and listings flooded with "must sell before recall repair." The collapse wasn't speculation, it was the market reacting to truth. Forest River's silence shielded reports but shattered confidence, dragging even unaffected models down. Loyalty turned to exit, value turned to warning, and some still overpay, only because they haven't learned what comes next. The next link in the chain exposed how dealers tried to stay afloat when trust vanished. The dealer dilemma. Dealers became the unwilling middlemen of the scandal. Floor plan lenders who finance showroom inventory began calling in audits when Forest River recalls froze sales. Interest on those loans kept accruing even as rigs sat idle under stop-sale orders. A leaked memo from a major Midwest distributor captured the panic. Unsellable inventory at risk. Minimize exposure through aggressive fees and service upsells. In plain terms, dealers started passing their pain to customers. Purchase contracts began filling with vague fees like processing, market readiness, and safety compliance, masking penalties that funneled cash back to dealers. Staff admitted they were told to recover lost margin, even if it meant bending ethics. Trust collapsed as customers realized the add-ons weren't optional. Meanwhile, small-town dealerships faced layoffs and rebranding just to stay afloat. But buried beneath those hidden charges was something bigger, a confidential buyback pipeline that rewrote losses quietly, far from public view. The secret agreements that surfaced next proved the company wasn't just fixing rigs, it was buying silence. If this breakdown opened your eyes, subscribe now. We uncover what manufacturers hide, what dealers won't admit, and how to protect every dollar you've put on the road. The quiet buybacks. When the first safety goodwill letters appeared, they looked harmless. Offers to refund or replace certain units in the interest of customer satisfaction. But fine print told a different story. Accepting the payout required signing a non-disclosure agreement, barring owners from discussing defects publicly or joining class actions. In exchange, some received near-full reimbursement, while others were offered just enough to walk away. Anonymized settlement letters later verified what many suspected. The company was quietly cleaning up the most visible cases before regulators connected the dots. Only 1 in 20 affected owners received reimbursement, often delayed and buried in paperwork labeled voluntary resolution. Behind the scenes, technicians reworded safety defects as satisfaction adjustments to keep numbers low. Online, identical settlement letters revealed a coordinated silence that regulators could no longer ignore. Federal investigators began matching buyback VNs with missing inspection logs, uncovering the same pattern across multiple states. What started as hush money has now become evidence, and this time, accountability has company. Regulators move in. When federal investigators stepped in, the tone across the entire RV industry changed overnight. What began as a series of consumer complaints had now escalated into a full-scale engineering analysis led by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The official docket labeled Forest River's defects as systemic, meaning they were not isolated incidents, but signs of a recurring failure built into the production process itself. Investigators demanded 5 years of manufacturing data, supplier contracts, and recall correspondence, forcing the company to open its doors to scrutiny it could no longer control. Inspectors toured Indiana facilities, uncovering incomplete welds, mismatched parts, and halted testing logs, clear proof of systemic neglect. Washington analysts began drafting mandatory recall rules set to activate before summer, with potential costs reaching tens of millions. Forest River's stock slipped as suppliers braced for fallout. Publicly, the company pledged cooperation. Privately, insiders called it defensive spin. This investigation isn't about broken hardware anymore. It's about exposing how a trusted name built its empire on silence and shortcuts. The next step revealed how far the company would go to protect its image, even when the evidence was staring everyone in the face. The company line versus the evidence. When Forest River finally addressed the public, its message was polished but hollow. Executives insisted that all known issues have been resolved and that customer safety remains our top priority. Yet the leaked factory inspection photos told another story. Images from inside the Goshen and Elkhart plants showed piles of rejected parts next to finished units, exposed wiring under unsealed floor panels, and workers hurriedly reattaching brackets already flagged for replacement. In one particularly damning photo, a freshly painted frame still showed visible cracks beneath the coating, proof that cosmetic fixes were being used to mask deeper flaws. Analysts compared leaked factory photos to glossy ads claiming rigs were tested to endure decades of travel. The contrast exposed a widening trust gap as even repaired units failed third-party checks. Market data confirmed the damage. Resale values dropped 22%, one of the steepest declines in RV history. Forest River called it limited, but regulators proved otherwise. The difference between their claims and reality is now measurable in reputation, in resale, and in every trade-in offer. After months of uncertainty, owners finally have a clear path, and it starts with knowing exactly where their rig stands. Your VIN action plan. If your Forest River falls within the 2019 through 2024 VIN range, you now have leverage, and information is your strongest protection. The Forest River Scandal File, released by consumer advocates, contains verified recall numbers, photos of known defect points, and a 3-step owner guide. Step 1. Verify your VIN against the affected lists published by regulators and consumer safety groups. Step 2. Schedule a certified inspection from an independent technician, not a dealer, tied to the manufacturer. Step 3. File a claim through Forest River's warranty or the Federal Recall Reimbursement Portal. Keep every receipt, repair quote, and correspondence in writing. Verified documentation is now worth more than promises. Those who record every repair and claim hold rigs valued up to 15% higher than unverified units. Each VIN check and filed report adds pressure that forces real accountability across the industry. This isn't just paperwork, it's power. Silence once protected shortcuts. Now evidence protects wallets. And if this ends with Forest River, history says otherwise. What happens next will shape not just one brand's legacy, but the standards of the entire RV world. The industry wake-up. Forest River's scandal is no longer a single company issue. It has become the catalyst for reform across the RV manufacturing sector. Regulators and trade analysts are now drafting new production oversight rules requiring third-party endurance testing for structural and electrical systems before models reach the market. For the first time in decades, manufacturers may be required to publicly disclose their defect rates and supplier audits. Industry insiders expect these reforms to take effect within the next 30 days, and the ripple effects will reshape pricing, production speed, and buyer leverage. Clearance discounts are surfacing fast as dealers rush to unload pre-reform inventory before stricter inspections hit. Waiting 30 days could save thousands as manufacturers scramble to comply with new rules. Stronger recall coverage, warranty extensions, and refund protections are already in motion. The industry can no longer hide behind ads. It must prove every claim. Stay sharp, protect your investment, and never trust marketing over evidence again. Whatever you do, don't scroll past this one, because this story is far from over. More leaks, more evidence, and way more fallout are coming. If you've owned a Forest River, drop your story in the comments. Hit like if you want the truth out there, and subscribe, because the next update changes everything.